Welcome, everyone, to the Captive Audience. It is the 12th of August, and we stopped counting at 500 shows, I think. But more than 500 shows ago, the gentleman with us tonight was on the very first Captive Audience, May 12th, 2020.
Yeah.
Jeff Reynolds. Jeff, welcome to the show. And by the way, everybody, Jeff is an author, a writer, not in addition to being a Captive Audience co-founder, along with our friend, the late David Darnell, which we miss him dearly. And then, of course, Sunny Danforth, who's off in your neck of the woods now.
Oh, is she?
She moved to Florida. Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding. I didn't even know that. I'll have to look her up.
3 weeks ago. Yeah, you should.
Oh, yeah.
That's where
she's probably down in Naples or something, right?
I'm not exactly sure where, but I know she was very happy with it.
I can't blame her.
And also, you write for Restoration News, which has some great articles that we're going to talk about tonight. And I also saw something, I think it was on somewhere. Oh, it was on your webpage, which is jeffreyreynolds.net. Journalism is printing what someone else doesn't want printed. Everything else is public relations. George Orwell.
That's a quote from George Orwell. Yeah, that I found that many years ago, and it's sort of been my motto ever since.
I think it kind of falls in line with the Princess Bride quote too. That when Prince, what's his name? The guy. The main character, I'm trying to remember his name, and then Princess Buttercup, and she goes, why are you causing me pain? He goes, life is pain, Buttercup. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something.
That's right. Still, my kids love that movie, so it's one of their favorites. So it has absolutely lasted.
It has stood the test of time, and and I don't know anybody who can watch certain sequences in there and not just burst out laughing, especially was it the bishop that was played by Peter, forgetting his name now.
He was the old British guy. Yeah, the Mao Edge.
Yeah, Mao Edge. and he actually was in a movie, where he played the devil, and they did a remake of it with Brendan Fraser years later. But he did the original in the 1960s with Dudley Moore. And Bedazzled.
Yeah. Yep.
And
my
daughter was so good.
My daughter discovered that movie. I didn't even know about Dudley Moore and this other guy. I've forgotten his name, but I didn't know that they were a comedy duo. And she discovered them and made me watch that, and it's spectacular. It's
really good.
Yeah,
the nuns on the trampolines kind of stayed in mind for many years. But anyways, so we digress.
And you are a Catholic, right? This is right up your alley. Yeah.
They had they really captured the spirit of how people, put a new face on the devil. That's for sure. But anyway, we've got a lot of devils out there that we've been hunting, and the latest, of course, that comes out of the news is all the stuff that we were talking about. I put on my Trump. This is the hat I wore when you and I were on the evening news watching the election returns. Fairly confident after we saw the 1 million plus margin of Trump in Pennsylvania that we're probably going to pull this one off.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a very different kind of election ultimately, and one that 2020, this is sort of 2020 what is it in Star Wars? Trump getting elected was Star Wars: A New Hope in 2016. The Empire Strikes Back was in 2020, or the Deep State Strikes Back with Biden and everything that happened there. And then what's the final one of
the Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi. And here we are, the Jedi, ready to take on the Siths at the deep state, and of course Antifa, who persists
And
and has grown everywhere.
yeah, no, it's the Imperial Guard seems to reside in Salem around Mahonia Hall, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's there. It's a target rich environment.
that's right. That's right. Well, and you know, they haven't gotten the message from 2024 yet. Many of the towns here in Oregon, especially the ones that have been attacking journalists that are covering Antifa. And you were just on Denise and Hunter
Hmm.
today on KYKN Newsmakers at noon. No, that was not today, but 2 days ago.
A few days
And
ago.
you talked about the journalists that have been assaulted in the Portland
Hmm.
riot, among other things. So, uh, what's kind of the let's lay this out for folks so they understand what's been happening.
Yeah, and this is a mirror image of what happened in 2020. They're trotting out the same old playbook, the revolutionary playbook. They're just like every other revolutionary communist movement throughout history. They're trying to create chaos and violence and create instability in society so that they can then fill it with some sort of totalitarian regime. That's their entire goal. So there was a story last week of Honey Badger Mom. That's her handle on X. She goes down there all the time and covers the Antifa riots, the ICE riots, all that stuff, right? And she does a great job of just being a journalist, being a street journalist. And she has long since been recognized by these people and doxxed and harassed, and they try to block her every time she goes down there to document what they're doing. Last week, she ended up getting punched in the back of the head to the point where she actually had to go to the hospital. So another reporter had to step in and get everybody to back off. Her name is Katie Daviscourt, and she writes, she works with Andy No at the Post Millennial. So this is an ongoing thing. I remember this from 2020 when even reporters for Coin 6 News were being harassed and spit on and shoved out of the scene, and had their cameras blocked and all that stuff so that they couldn't document what these revolutionary Marxists were trying to do in the streets of Portland.
Yeah, and here's an ironic story for you that I just saw today. This just shows how the spin machine never dies, because actually, Antifa right now, there's been a whole renaissance of rioting going on, and there are elements of the so-called mainstream news that are celebrating the so-called protest economy. That there's Portland sees biggest protest since 2020. Some downtown businesses see a boost. They're
Oh
not
my
interviewing
God.
the ones that
Come on.
absolutely hate it. I'm not kidding. It's a KGW story, and of
So
course,
it's riot tourism. Is that what's going on here?
well, I
It's
don't even know if it's
anything to
people.
revitalize downtown.
It's
Get some
bringing
action
people
going on,
downtown.
right?
That's exactly it.
Wow.
And they're
That's
celebrating
hilarious.
that. And my jaw drops because that's a spin machine. That's a spin.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. No, and we know, I mean, they're just desperate for any good news at all. It's really shocking what has happened in the core of downtown Portland. The vacancy rate is over 40%, maybe 50%. Big Pink just sold a few weeks back for like 10% of its original value. It was sold at a fire sale rate. The Block 8. What's the Ritz Carlton Hotel property that went into receivership?
Yeah.
And is going to sell, so I mean, the idea that they were going to build a Ritz Carlton, they started it before COVID, but even then it was like, what are you people even looking at to say that downtown can support a Ritz Carlton? And now, after COVID and after all the riots and after all the businesses moved out, Standard left, Tektronix is leaving. I just saw that a few weeks ago. That's shocking. All the and Intel, they're their layoffs are way higher than they originally announced. So all of the big employers are seeing that Oregon is so unfriendly to business and especially big business, they're just leaving. And now all of a sudden, everybody's like, well, where am I going to work now?
Yeah.
There's nothing to do in downtown Portland.
And a normal set of political leaders would go into a bit of a state of panic that this could
Right.
cause them to lose elections next year. So they would start going and begging these businesses to stay. But we're from Oregon, and Oregon is the place where the governor didn't return a phone call to Intel for a year. And Intel decided
I didn't
to go,
see that, really.
oh yeah, this is Kate Brown did not return a phone call to to Intel, and Intel was evaluating: do we expand in Oregon? We need more land, so we're going to need some help on the land use, or do we go somewhere else? They went to Ohio, and Ohio is now the super giant 80-acre massive expansion Intel production facility. Now the company's got problems; it's in trouble.
Right.
But they are not going to.
So they've moved from the Silicon Forest to the Silicon Prairie.
Exactly. And Ohio has an industrial policy that's serious about trying to make sure that they bring in businesses. So does Texas, by the way. And so the big sucking sound that took you to Florida and is also taking people and businesses to Texas and now Ohio. And so, but these political leaders, they don't talk about it. In fact, in Portland, they're rallying right now because they want to see if they can't bar ICE from functioning in the city and restore DEI to all the programs in the state. They're having a rally in Portland to do this right now, which, there's no rally saying, let's see if we can't keep some of these businesses here as they lay people off. Nothing.
No, they don't care about that. It's not important to them. And this is you talk about the giant sucking sound. It's a brain drain. And I wrote about this 2 years ago when Brandon Johnson was elected mayor of Chicago. I wrote that for PJ Media while I was still writing for them. And I brought in Portland as well because what you're seeing is that people like me are becoming red state or blue state refugees in red states. We're not bringing our values, blue state values, with us. We're voting. We're moving to the place where it votes like we want to be governed, right? So, but in Chicago, in San Francisco, Oakland, L.A., all the West Coast cities, right? Seattle, Tacoma, you're seeing a huge exodus of people. The populations are falling in all of those areas, and especially in the cities, even if they're moving out to the suburbs, but they're leaving the cities. And the only people that are left, because you've had such a huge brain drain, are the crazies. And you're seeing more and more stories now in Willamette Week.
Don't forget the fentanyl addicts. They're also coming into Oregon and they're staying.
Right. That's the kind of tourism you get, is riot tourism and fentanyl tourism. So, and that's always happened with Oregon because we've been so friendly to the homeless people. But so what you're seeing now is, and the fentanyl zombies are the only ones that are voting now, basically. And so
several times at that.
You're seeing, that too, but that's a separate issue. That's the same issue. Anyway, what you're seeing is more and more stories in Willamette Week and the Oregonian about all of these socialists that are taking over Portland City Council and voting as a block and moving as a block. They changed the whole structure of the city council, and now there's a majority of Democratic Socialists of America party members who are as radical as it gets, as Marxists, and they're the ones that set the agenda.
Yeah, pro-Antifa.
And there's nobody to fight back.
There's no one to fight back, and this was the plan. This is why they put in ranked choice voting with multi-member districts, which is the worst combination you can have.
Right.
And because actually that means that 1 to 2 people in every district could get less than 25% of the vote and still win. As a result, you get
Yeah.
complete loony jobs.
Yeah.
You
That's
know
what
that.
happened with Zoran Mamdani. He won the primary through ranked choice voting. He wasn't even the first place vote getter, if I remember correctly. It was like 38% of the vote he got.
I didn't know that, and that's really
Yeah.
important to tell folks because it's like it's like the woke mind virus. You know,
Mhm.
it has these various related viruses, and one of them is ranked choice voting, which they make sound good.
Secondary infections.
Yes, exactly. It becomes a brain infection. It metastasizes, and then pretty soon people are like, this seems like a good system, but I don't understand why everything's effed up." And
Well,
it's
and
like, I don't
people
know.
vote for ranked choice voting because they buy what's being sold to them when it's on the ballot, but they have no idea how it works. And even New York's had it for like 10 years and nobody still understands how it works.
Yeah.
You ask anybody on the street and they're like, I have no idea what the system does.
Yeah, you might as well choose it by having people do Rubik's cube runoffs or something. No one knew. Like, I don't know how he won. He
That would
just
be a better test of intelligence, at least.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would filter out at least a few of these nincompoops. And so they are saying, by the way, I found some quotes in this article. They're saying that it's driving foot traffic downtown, the protesters. And that Midtown Beer Garden is super happy about it.
Well, yeah, sure. Especially since they drove the Proud Boys out of town, so nobody's there to start any riots, and in air quotes.
Yeah,
Uh, so there's nobody to have fights at their bars. They drove out all the people that oppose them. So and these are paying customers with good jobs, so they're going to spend a lot of money and not steal anything, of course.
but they do seem to be driving tenants
That
out of
was
the
also
city
sarcasm.
because, well, yeah, no, I know, and they're driving tenants out of the city. Like, so you
Sure.
mentioned about Big Pink. There's that big blackish building. I forget what it's called, but it's
Hmm.
same thing. Is it the U.S. Bank building? And then Western U.S. CBD office market is pointing out how the latest building, the Commonwealth building, which is certified with all of the LEED,
Yeah.
environmental requirements and stuff.
Why
Uh,
wouldn't anybody want to live there?
yeah, I know it's so great, except it's at a 33% capacity right now,
Wow.
and it's actually here's the story. In 2000 and let's see, 2014, it sold for $41 million. It was bought 2 years later in 2016 for $69 million. It was affected by the MetLife. Well, see, KBS, some I guess California-based capital advisors that defaulted on the mortgage for that. And
Right.
MetLife took it over that year for $15 million. Now they've put it back on the market at the worst possible time to put it on the market.
Right.
And if they look at the last two buildings and what happened, where they lost about 70% of their value.
Yeah.
you know.
No, Big Pink, I think the last recorded sale was 2016, if I remember correctly. And it was 400 and something $1 million. And then it just sold this, a couple of months ago for $45 million.
That's only a 90% drop. Just,
Yeah. No, it's the biggest building in the state. And it sold for $45 million. I mean, if you don't understand that there's a problem, then you'll never understand.
and,
But
so
so many of these people are actually rooting for that. They want big business gone. They don't
they
want
hate
cities. They
capitalism.
want cities to be vacant so that we can rewild the land finally.
I think we should just unleash as many Antifa people out into the wild and encourage the wildlife to chase them down.
The
And
first time I met Phil Kerpen he was with Americans for Prosperity at the time when I was chapter head running Tea Party stuff back in the
yep,
day. So
back in the day,
2010, I or 2009 even. I went out to
that's when I think we first met.
That's about that time, yeah. And so I went out to the DC area for their national convention, and I met Phil Kerpen, who was a vice president at the time, and he said, I told him I was from Portland and running Tea Party, helping to run Tea Party down there, and he's like, is there any way we could just wall off the city and let the people of the city just cannibalize themselves and let the rest of the state run itself normally?
Yeah, like Escape from New York style. Remember that movie
Totally.
with Kurt Russell? They just put a
Yeah,
wall around New York and just said, "You guys kill each other. We're going to be fine out here."
that's exactly right. And then, almost 20 years later, and here we are, and it's that much worse.
Well, and so we're what 200 days into the new Trump administration. The Democrats seem to be doubling down on all of the worst ideas, many of which can't survive financially. Like the DEI stuff's getting defunded because they're losing all the money, and
Right.
they're trying to go raise taxes and fees to pay for it, but they're finding it very difficult to do that because it's not a real sell to people.
Yeah, and they
And
want to do that in Oregon when we can't even pass a budget for ODOT.
yeah, yeah, we can't plow snow and fill potholes,
Right.
but we're going to go. The this is what I think Warner Reschke told me. He said that there's a department that is the DEI department. It has some cryptic name now, but it's the
Mm,
DEI department in the Department of Transportation, the one that's laying off line workers that actually do work on the roads.
yep.
Um, it receives $28 million a year, just that department, to spread DEI through ODOT. And I can't think of a less meaningful place to spread DEI. I mean, how many? If you see the people out there doing actual work on roads, they don't look like the
They
result.
seem rather diverse already.
Yeah, that's right. and and I don't think that they are going to ever complete any projects. So because the Rose Quarter thing that dates all the way back to 2017,
Oh,
and you
that goes
remember
way
that.
back further than that. I mean, Vera Katz was talking about capping off I-5 and building buildings on top of that, like Seattle.
Yep.
Um,
What they did in 2017 is they supposedly funded it, and then they spent about 5 years arguing with the anti-freeway people in Portland
yep.
about whether they're going to do it or not. And the feds, Trump, they just pulled the funding. They said, "Well,
Yeah.
the hell with you guys. Other people can use this money."
They're about to do the same thing with the CRC, too.
Yes, the CRC, the Columbia River Crossing, which is the I-5 bridge, which was going to shrink the capacity of traffic across the bridge and put a bunch of bicycle lanes and max trains
Yep.
and stuff across it, and it was going to cost. It's ballooned.
Oh, yeah.
CRC was the good old days. That's when it was cheap to
Yeah.
build it.
When it was only a couple of $1 billion.
Now I think it's pushing nine
Yeah.
or 10. And now they did spend what $300 million studying it and never built anything.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, that they need to study things.
They need to study things. Yeah, need some
Somebody's got
learning.
to make a living off this.
But this is um, part and parcel all the things we've just talked about. The Democrats have doubled and tripled down on, and they're defending all the policies of the Biden administration without noticing that all of those policies are going away, and they've also been discredited. And no one really wants them. No one. There isn't like this pang amongst the populace that, geez, bring back DEI policies. We really, really want it, and raise our taxes so we can pay for it. And
Right.
then I think this is a good lead in to another one of the regular features that you do about the worst climate stories. And I'll just mention an Oregon story that relates to it. You might have followed the offshore wind thing. They were going to take
Uh-huh.
195,000 acres off Curry County and um, Coos County and so on. And they were going to put up all these wind farms, 900-foot tall windmills that
And they're
have
getting
never
bigger and bigger all the time and more obtrusive.
and they've never been done in 2,000 feet of water, apparently, which is what they wanted to go do. Uh,
Wow.
and
2,000 feet, really?
yes, so
Wow.
it's right off that shelf. It's like about 30 miles out, but you can see them pretty easily. And if they did do it, and it got canned by the Trump administration, and it kind of rescued Tina Kotek, who was doing everything she could to kind of delay it last year because she signed a bill that was going to have the state come in and correspondingly fund and clear the path uh, on the state side to put up those wind farms. And the feedback when they went and asked people for feedback on the coast, everyone hated it. I mean, to the tune of 90% of the people who would show up at these things
Sure.
in the
That's
Bureau of
some of the
Ocean.
most beautiful landscape you're ever going to see anywhere, and they're going to ruin it. Those things, when you drive out Eastern Oregon and Eastern Washington, you see all those wind farms along the ridges, especially like nighttime when the red lights start flashing all in unison. It looks like alien ships landing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's disorienting and it's ugly as hell, man. It's awful.
And it's totally dependent on government subsidies. And
100%.
and apparently those aliens that land out there really hate birds, especially endangered species like bald eagles.
Hmm.
The bird choppers hack those things up, and these ones off the coast promise to confuse the navigation of whales and other kinds of fish.
Yep.
And that's prime sport fishing area, so it would destroy an entire recreational industry out there.
Sure. Not only that, but also in the North Sea, north of England, the British Navy is actually having real problems with these things. And now that the U.S. Navy is starting to fight back against these offshore wind farms in Virginia and New Jersey, because it's really messing with their sonar and their navigation arrays. So they have real problems trying to deal with these things. And so it's a national security issue on top of everything else.
And you know what else? I don't notice that the Chinese building a bunch of these off their coast.
Are they building a lot inland? I don't even know. I know they're building a lot of coal plants.
They're building coal. They brought. I just heard today they brought 400 gigawatts of capacity under their electrical grid
Hmm.
last year.
Yeah.
The United States brought somewhere around 5 gigawatts of
Right.
capacity
Now,
online.
China has a lot more to go. A lot of it still isn't electrified. All that I get that, but that doesn't mean that they're not outstripping us. I mean, our grid is falling apart. That's why you had the Pacific or the not the Palisades. Well, not the Palisades fire, the Paradise fire
The
a few
Paradise
years
Fire.
back. Yeah,
Yep.
and several fires in Oregon have been started by sparking electrical wires. So we've got aging infrastructure that we refuse to allow the companies to rebuild because of environmental regulations and environmental litigation. So we're actually falling behind where we are currently. Never mind adding more capacity when we've got all these data centers that we're building across the country and that are sucking away all the extra power capacity that we're producing. We're just not keeping up.
Yeah, and it's. I just saw today also that it's what 10 or 15 years the data centers driven by AI innovation will require 30 times the amount of electricity that we have now
Sure.
to
Yeah.
fuel. And so, and of course, if the United States doesn't do it, then other countries will be the ones that will have to have our data on their servers if we want to
Right.
have anything.
I mean,
What
we're
could go
already
wrong
getting
with
our rare
that?
earth materials from China, so we might as well get our data from China too. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? What might they do with all of that data? Geez, I don't know. Um, I heard something also the other day. This is the effect that AI is having on efficiency, which is why it's also drawing so much electricity. There was the Australian Navy is buying frigates of and doing it in conjunction with the Japanese and the Germans, the good quality frigates, design, right? But they've gone and introduced a whole bunch of AI to automate the processes to make it more efficient. The current frigates they have that they're going to replace these with have 190 personnel on them. The new frigates will have 90. So that is what AI is doing in the span of about 4 or 5 years to just
Sure.
one class of ships. If you don't have a way to leverage this and you're, say, I don't know, the US Navy, you're screwed.
Well, I'll tell you what, that goes for drone technology as well, both submersible drones and aerial drones. And my boss, Hayden Ludwig, who's the executive director of research for Restoration of America, he wrote within the last couple of weeks, wrote a report for restoration-news.com about how we're falling behind the Chinese in technology. And what we're seeing in the Ukraine war, as well as what China's doing to prepare for Taiwan or any confrontation in the South Pacific, they're creating large swarms of small unmanned aerial vehicles that can overwhelm the defenses of a single, battleship or whatever
Yeah.
you have out there at sea, even an aircraft carrier. So these are the kinds of things that they're doing now that we haven't even started yet. We're way behind on that technology.
That's how they can leapfrog, and they can do it quickly, and they can make it so that it can react so fast that we'll have these big lumbering, ships that'll
Yep.
just be they'll just be like sitting ducks
Yeah,
to this
they're
technology.
last century's technology. Or they could be a platform for 21st century technology, but we're just not developing it like our adversaries are.
Yeah, and our adversaries seem to be serious about it, and they have actually less money, but they're finding a way to do more with it, and that's how you find yourself on the losing end of a war at some point.
Yep, that's exactly right. And if we were to go to war with China right now over, say, Taiwan or something else going on, uh, estimates are that we would be able to last about a week.
Yeah, and we'll run out of the defensive missiles
Yeah,
and all that, which means that none of our ships will be able to go anywhere close. For instance, in the island chains around Taiwan, they'll all
hmm,
have to withdraw to
right.
bases that are further away because they can't defend themselves anymore,
Yep.
and so they're just basically going to be destroyed until there's
Yeah.
more missiles supplied to them.
That's right. We had a question actually in the comments here from Lori Good. She says, "Haven't they had to close beaches on the East Coast after windstorms due to the offshore wind farms? Pretty sure I've seen photos of shattered blades from wind turbines on the beach." That actually happened in, I believe it was Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
So yes, that happened summer of 2024. I remember I wrote about that for my weekly climate column. That was a mess, and that stuff was washing up. That's the other issue with all these green technologies, whether it's EVs or wind turbines or solar panels. None of the materials are recyclable, and they're really hard to get rid of. But they're really easy to break. You've
Yeah.
seen, especially in 2024, there were a series of storms that wiped out solar arrays across Texas. There was one in Florida. I remember there was one in India. It was the world's largest seaborne solar array. It's actually floating solar panels, and they got wiped out by a typhoon. So
Who'd have thunk that could happen? I mean, they said with the offshore wind that they wanted to put up around Curry County, they were talking about the Columbus Day storm, which I guess was 1965 here in Oregon. They said
64.
that 64 that would
Yeah.
destroy all of that stuff. All of it would
Oh,
just
no,
be
no
like
doubt about it.
shattered
No doubt
crap.
about it.
Yeah.
Never mind all the material that goes into. I mean, you're talking 2,000 feet. I still can't wrap my head around that. To get a structure large enough to be able to withstand the wave action and the currents and stay standing, the amount of concrete that would require, and never
Well,
mind the deep diving, the expensive labor just to get it down there. That's
they were
crazy.
going to tether it to the ocean floor.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I know. I know. There's somebody is like, let's try this. They'll give us $1 billion. Yeah, let's do it. It's so insane. And actually, you mentioned about the East Coast. New Jersey has a whole bunch of these things off their coast. And
Yeah.
that guy who used to be a Democrat, I forget his name, that converted to a Republican, and he became like a super pro Trump guy. Actually,
Yeah, Chitterelli, right? The guy that's running for governor.
yeah,
Yeah.
and no, no,
We've
no.
written about
Well,
him.
him too. No, but there's a congressman that
Oh, okay, yeah.
Jeff something or other. But anyway, what happened was they financially it was a complete bust.
Of
Once the
course.
money from the government ran out from the feds, the thing lost $6 billion, and
And that's
suddenly
on the
the rate.
taxpayers of the state. The feds aren't going to bail them out.
Well, so guess who is bailing it out? The ratepayers are finding their electricity rates
Yep,
tripling to pay for this stuff. It was oh so cheap until it wasn't.
that's right.
Um, and so I wanted to bring up that you actually do a regular feature, the worst climate stories of the week. And I thought we could cover a few of those because there's so many. We've just mentioned several, but
Right.
there's like an unlimited number, aren't there?
Oh, it's insane. I've already. It's what is it, Tuesday, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm already working on this week's column, and I've got like 7 articles or 7 items already.
Well, and I mean, the Democrats are suing to force these projects to still follow through. Um, they are demanding that the money still be spent, and of course, all the cronies that they were working with. I
Yep,
forget the one, Stacey Abrams. That thing got
two
defunded, and
billion dollars.
that was a scam. That
Yep.
was an entity that had $100 in the bank, and they gave them $2 billion. Yeah, I know. It seems like it can't even be true.
You can't make this stuff up, right? And so there's one item today that I can't wait to put in the column this week. The British government is actually telling its residents to delete emails to stop climate change. Um, they're saying that if you keep too many emails, it uses up too much data, and therefore it wastes water in the data centers. And so, therefore, in order to save the climate, you need to delete all your old emails.
That sounds like it's brought to you by the same people who said you should use one sheet of toilet paper to
That's right.
save the trees or something. We're just you only need one sheet. Well, maybe
Yeah,
only
yeah.
you need one sheet, but I'm not shaking your hand.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Yeah, without going into too much further detail. Yeah,
Exactly.
those are the people that want you to keep the thermostat at 82.
Yeah, that's right. So that
Yeah,
effectively you don't have air conditioning. It's the
right.
same as not having it.
Yep. Yeah, air conditioning, which has saved the world from dying of heat stroke.
Yeah, yeah, and they're really worried about global warming, um, but they don't want to actually have anybody feel more comfortable when they say we're causing it to go up. In
Well, fathom a theory that says that if the air temperature goes up too much, uh, lots of people could theoretically die in some point in the future. But the people, and therefore the people now who are living through actual heat waves, should not use air conditioning.
they shouldn't use air conditioning; they should die. But
Right?
these people also think that maybe the world's a little too overpopulated,
Yeah.
and so for them this is hunky dory. But then we notice, and I think you've probably talked about these in the past, is that the same people who are saying that we have to do this, it's a crisis, and every 3 or 4 years they say the world's going to end in 3 or 4 years or 10 years,
Hmm.
whatever, and it comes and it goes and no such thing happens. They're all buying oceanfront property like the Obamas and living in it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff Bezos, Obama, Oprah Winfrey, all of those people, they're all exactly the same. But you also have a lot of those people building underground bunkers in remote locations too, which also makes you wonder what's really actually coming down the pike.
Yeah, I do think, and you mentioned about the grid being crappy. Yeah, it's crappy. So you might even have electricity being generated someplace, but you know what? How valuable electricity generated someplace that's way far away from you is? It's nothing. It doesn't do
Well,
anything.
but that's why they want to build micro nuclear reactors at the location of these data centers. It actually is a brilliant solution to the problem.
And it's almost certain to happen. In fact, there's a
Hmm.
company in Corvallis, NuScale, that
Yep.
specializes in it. They're only inhibited by one thing, a prohibition. I think it's in Oregon's constitution, or it might be a statute voted in by people in 1980 that forbids them from even building any full on micro nuclear reactors in the state of Oregon. We're
Yep.
brilliant here. We're so smart.
No new nuclear reactors since 1980,
Yeah.
because of the anti-nuke movement, and 3 Mile Island that was way overblown as a crisis.
It was, and they also are basing it on Hanford, the place where I believe they generated a lot of the plutonium that was used in World War
Hmm.
II and the early part of the Cold War to build nuclear weapons. But there were no safeguards. It was a
Right.
completely irrelevant example to talk about.
This is actually a really good segue because the France is about 70%, generates 70% of its power from nuclear.
Yep.
And they not only recycle their spent nuclear fuel to make more nuclear fuel with it, but then when it's finally spent for good after recycling and all of that, they bury it in the ground, 5,000 feet down. They have this huge cavern that they've built to dispose of the spent nuclear fuel that will never ever bother a human being again, where it's at. So they're doing everything right, and they're doing all the things that we should be doing to have safe nuclear power that's reliable, that doesn't depend on the weather,
Yeah,
and
and
doesn't spew carbon dioxide if that's an issue for you.
yeah, well, and I think when they recycle the nuclear fuel, each subsequent stage becomes less and less radioactive.
Sure, that's
It,
why
it
they call it a half life.
yeah, and so they minimize what they are even having to bury, and yeah, they and the thing is, it's going to be explained to people one way or the other. Either we're going to understand the explanation about what a baseload uh, electricity sources, or we're going to find out what it's like when we don't have a baseload electricity source. And
Well, the
then
disruption of the base load is exactly what caused. I wrote an article about this. That's what caused the nationwide blackout in Spain and Portugal at
Portugal.
the end of April, and that's a big deal. They bragged 12 days before that blackout that they had gone 100%, or a majority of the power in the country was done by wind and solar, by renewable. And there was all of their renewable generation is in one segment of Spain, up in the northeast section near the border with France.
Hmm.
And there was a particular weather pattern that happened where there was cloud cover that came over and covered all the solar, and when it cleared, it also created a big wind surge. So there was a surge of power from solar and wind at the same time that overloaded the entire circuitry of the entire nation and plunged it into darkness, and had the failsafe at the French border not kicked in, it would have spread across more of Europe too.
And that's something, electricity, and even I don't really have a great understanding of electricity tech, but there's two kinds of bad electrical situations. One where you don't have enough electricity, and the other
Right.
is when you have too much. And when it doesn't match and isn't reliably generated, then you end up having situations like this. Texas had back in 2021, the big freeze where the wind farms, and you think a place with all this oil would not be dealing with this, but
Texas has been taken over by green energy. It's really weird.
well, it's green energy turns into black energy, which is darkness and
Yep.
cold, and people actually died. They actually froze to death,
Sure.
which is far more likely to happen that you're going to die from that than you're going to die even from heat. You dying in the cold sucks. It's the reason why we pretty much fled south, ancestors from the ice ages, and so I think we are. It's a luxury to believe some of these fairy tales that we're being told are going to work by people. But it's interesting too that in Spain and Portugal, the first thing they did is cover up and lie about what was going on, so that people really couldn't
Right.
figure out what was happening.
That's right.
That's a common instinct globally, and we are really experiencing that here. What are some examples? Are you seeing some climate examples of that here in the United States? And I think we also have some very prominent things happening in the news now with our justice system that relate to that.
Sorry. Examples of what again?
The government just lying about it or trying to
well, it's
deceive the
everything.
public.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, no, they're still out there touting. I was writing a report today on electric vehicles, and the EPA website still has an FAQ on electric vehicles saying, debunking myths and stuff. So the Trump administration hasn't gone all the way through every website on in the federal government to scrub it of BS. So I mean, the lies that were being told, it all came to a head during COVID, of course, which is the reason this show exists.
Yep.
But the intelligence community, you look at the letter signed by 51 former intelligence heads stating that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, that kind of stuff. They'll blatantly lie, and they don't believe there will ever be any consequences to it, and they'll be out of office by the time anybody discovers it, and there won't be any consequences.
Well, many of those guys that said that stuff were essentially retired anyway, too, and they're
sure,
like,
right.
"What do I got to lose?"
Yeah.
But they did squeal like stock pigs when they lost their clearances. When the Trump administration revoked their clearances, security clearances, which a lot of them, the ones that weren't retired, were making money off the fact that they had those high level top secret security clearances still, despite
working
the fact
in the private sector. And
yep. But I'm thinking also of the stuff that we're learning now that was happening, and as you said before we went on the show, we knew it was happening, but now we're actually uncovering all the people at the highest levels of government that were hiding this. So House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan blasts ex-FBI Director Christopher Wray for keeping the Schiff intel leak from Congress. This is a member of Congress that told people to leak classified information in order to damage Trump. And a whistleblower came forward recently and exposed the fact that this happened. And Schiff, who's now a California senator,
he was running for Senate at the time, which is why they probably did that, which is the same thing that they did with Hillary Clinton in the email server. They hid that or didn't. They specifically cited the upcoming election in 2016 as a reason not to pursue an investigation into that issue. But they cited the opposite in saying that they weren't going to investigate Hunter Biden's laptop, and then they switched right back around and protected. And it's always to protect the Democrats because the Democrats are the best friend of the deep state and the swamp creatures that run the government and will do anything to weaponize the government against the American people.
Well, I think that there are a few people that are probably going to face some consequences. What's his name that used to be the head of the CIA back in
Clapper.
Clapper, James Clapper,
Yeah.
um, and then well, no, not Clapper was who's the other guy that was also doing this?
Clapper, Comey, Ray. Who's the other one? Brennan,
Brennan. Brennan
yeah,
is the one. He
the guy that
everything's
voted for the
pointing back to
communists.
him.
Yeah,
Well, it's fascinating because he has a really weird story to him, but he also was operating in the CIA, so it was very hard to actually find out what he was doing and who was working on the CIA end of things. So it's starting to look like, even though this eventually ended up in the FBI and turned into these investigations in the DOJ, it started at the CIA where they couldn't figure out
sure.
what they were doing.
Well, I read a book last year by an ex contractor for the CIA named Michael Waller called Big Intel. And he goes through the entire history of the CIA and the OSS before that, which was started during World War II to shore up the international intelligence that we needed during the war that we didn't have. And right from the jump, the OSS and later the CIA was staffed at the highest levels by members of the Frankfurt School and people like Herbert Marcuse and other Eastern European socialists and former members of the Soviet Union. So it doesn't have the best track record to begin with.
No, and it has been going on for a long time. It feels like it reached a whole new level of almost blatantly and openly, like, we can go ahead and do whatever we want. And literally, I remember Chuck Schumer saying, President Trump better watch out. Intel community can get you 6 ways to Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, that's what was going on as he said it.
Yeah,
Uh, which is insane that they got away with it to a great extent. But I do think that it is amazing they are doing something about this, despite the fact that they've got a lot of stuff to do. So um, there's the Pam Bondi and the DOJ, Kash Patel and the FBI, um, Ratcliffe and CIA,
yeah.
and then of course Harmeet Dillon. Now,
Mm-hmm.
because apparently, some of this was a direct violation of President Trump's civil rights.
Of course it was. Yeah, everybody's got them. Even that guy.
Yeah, yeah. The thing we had that they were kept saying, he's not above the law. Yeah, but he's not below it. Uh, he's with it,
Yeah,
and
so nobody's above the law except Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton and Adam Schiff and yeah, come on, man.
and to some extent Hunter Biden still. I mean, I think it's fair to say that they got away with something because just imagine if Hunter Biden had to tell the truth to save his hide.
He'd be swinging.
That's right.
He doesn't
Yeah.
have the ability.
No, no, that's exactly right. Well, I did want to mention, by the way, that you wrote a book,
I
Behind the
did.
Curtain Inside the Network of Progressive Billionaires and Their Campaign to Undermine Democracy. I think it's important to mention to folks when you wrote this.
Yeah,
Because, go
yeah. Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that this is years ago. Was it 2018?
2019. Yeah.
2019.
Yeah.
And so this is before we saw a lot of the stuff that these guys ended up doing to manipulate the 2020 election,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which we know Zuckerberg did.
Sure.
It's not even disputed at this point. We know what he
Right.
did. Um,
Several
where
states made it illegal to do what he did in 2020.
That's right. That's right. And then we knew, and then Soros, all these groups receiving money and still receiving money from George
Sure.
Soros. The billionaire class. We keep hearing from Democrats that it's well, as Bernie Sanders used to say, the millionaires and billionaires until he became a millionaire, and then it's the billionaires only. But they have a lot of billionaires. And
Yeah,
these folks now, many of them are trying to kiss President Trump's butt as quickly as they can.
that's right.
But it's they did real damage to our republic.
Oh, they
And
still are. They haven't stopped, So, as bad as the billionaires are, the foundations are even worse. They're 10 times as much money as the individual billionaires themselves. The
yep,
Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, all these foundations started by serious capitalists at the turn of the 20th century, who made fantastic amounts of wealth, and set up charities that were supposed to elevate the human condition and help people out of poverty and help give them a hand up, not a handout. And their boards of directors over the last several decades have decided, well, we're not doing that stuff anymore. We're doing commie stuff instead. So the book, by the way, is at whoownsthedems.net. So and if you the reason I wrote that book, uh, you may be aware that the Indivisible group is in the news right now.
yep,
They've been organizing all of the Trump resistance this time around.
yep,
There was an article in 2017 during Trump's first term, within his first 100 days. And it was an article about this group of people that put out a handbook on how to resist Donald Trump. And it was basically trying to be the Tea Party of the left,
yeah,
and the anti-Trump Tea Party. And the article was done by some NPR or public radio station out of Northern California, and they were like, the mysterious group behind Indivisible. Who are these people and where are they getting their money? And you go to the website and it's right down at the bottom. Indivisible is a project of the Tides Foundation.
the
So,
Tides Foundation. There's
right.
another one of
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
The Tides Foundation actually sponsored Indivisible's 501c3 status until they could apply for it themselves, which is something that you're allowed to do under the IRS code. You can sponsor new organizations so that they can take donations without disclosing the names of their donors and be tax deductible. So the book grew out of all of that, and now 9 years later, almost or 8 years later, since I started the concept of the book, Indivisible is bigger than it's ever been. They have way more money than they've ever had. They have a much bigger network across the United States, and they are funding a lot more protests now and corporatizing them and making them into franchises, basically.
well, I can tell you there's one thing in particular that they're doing. I went to a town hall that they called it a town hall. It wasn't a town hall because usually the people who just show up with real questions actually get to ask them at the town hall, and they never do that. They're
Right.
canned affairs, totally rigged, pre-selected questions, or actually just people talking. They don't even ask questions.
Right.
But it was the Attorney General of the state of Oregon,
Oh,
Dan
yeah.
Rayfield, and along with several Paul Evans, a state rep, another state rep, and a state senator, and the whole thing was indivisible. They literally they weren't even making bones about it. The people there were organized and put there and informed and crowded the place,
Yeah.
and they were from Indivisible.
Well, and so they were out there. This is before Cliff Bentz was elected in CD2. They were out there organizing to overwhelm the town halls of Greg Walden in his final term.
Right.
So they've been doing this stuff for a long time. They're getting more efficient, more organized, and they're getting more people out, and they're flooding the zone.
Well, and so you were one of the early seers that not only saw this coming, but its ultimate impact. And I just want to encourage folks to check out your book. I posted the Amazon link that's there, and also whoownsthedems.net, which also takes you to the jeffreynolds.net behind the curtain. And that's the title of the book. And so everyone should check that out because it's interesting to read now, because it's like the history of the future. Is what you write, you know?
It's
That's
an
a term I
interesting term.
remember
I like
from
it.
Terminator.
Oh,
It's like the history of the future.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Portland stuff in there. Remember that there were people being shuttled. They were taking Uber rides from Seattle to Portland because they were being told, "Well, we've got enough protesters in Seattle now. We need more reinforcements in Portland." So they were taking these $100, $300 Uber rides from Seattle to Portland. Who was paying for that?
No kidding.
Um, and it also includes the organized effort to get the Multnomah County Republicans kicked out of the Avenue of Roses parade.
Yep, I remember that pretty well. And
Yep, yep.
they're actually trying to kick the Washington State Republicans out of the state fair up there too right now. That's actually happening right now. And then
That's right. I saw that, and they kicked them out, and they kicked out the Right to Life group because it doesn't align with our efforts or with our values. But we wish you good luck in your future endeavors.
well, so they might find their federal funding just disappearing. See, I mean, this is why it's so beautiful
Right?
what's been happening because President Trump, you know, both of us were sort of later adopters
Sure.
in the process of the 2016 primaries. We
Yeah, I
didn't
worked on
know
the
him.
Cruz campaign.
Yeah, I thought maybe he would be, because there was some history. I thought he might be kind of a liberal Republican. I really didn't know,
Yeah,
but he said the right things. And then I remember vividly, it was Russ Walker. They were taught. He said they spoke with the president. He spoke with the president, and the president told them because Russ was on the platform committee at the
yeah,
convention that
right.
if you put it in the platform, I will do it. And shockingly, that's what he did. He
Yeah,
actually went out and he just did all that stuff. And after that, that was it. Everybody was like, this is what we want.
yeah.
And he's even better this time because I think he has a sense of urgency, doesn't he? He knows that he's got limited time and he's wise to the deep state and all this garbage and he's rolling
Well,
these
he
guys.
was prepared too. The first time around, he had no idea what he was doing when he first assumed office, and
Yeah.
he said that. But this time around, the stories were that 6 months prior to election day, he was already putting together his staff and putting together a strategy, and he was going to hit the ground running. And
Yep.
you even saw people making changes at agencies before inauguration day. So it was a completely different time this time around.
Yeah, and he obviously found better people with better advice. Because look, why do we end up with Christopher Wray? Because Donald Trump listened to Chris Christie of all
Right.
people to get a
Yep.
recommendation as to who he should choose, and that's an example of something we're just not doing this time around. And if somebody isn't working out, he moves them out. He's not messing around, and everybody. I think he's got kind of an all-star team in on his
This time around, yeah,
cabinet.
and he started out with a good staff, and he's replaced a whole bunch. Like he just replaced the IRS head, and then he fired that Obama or Biden, I guess Obama or Biden appointee at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, but he's not afraid to move on from a mistake either.
No, and I think he knows that there just isn't enough time to screw around and wait for some of this to work out if it's not happening fast enough, which is keeping the Dems like completely that they don't know what to do. It's the speed
Yeah,
at which it's happening. But we've been on the receiving end of that. Remember, we used to think, wow, every day something else from the Biden administration. It wasn't Biden that was doing it. That's the big difference. Biden didn't have any idea what he was
right.
doing.
Nope.
But Trump is definitely driving it. I think he probably gets up every day and asks, "Okay, so that thing you told me yesterday, is it done?" Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. Can
And
you imagine his staff meetings?
yeah, that's right. Very efficient, and the
Right.
the speed at which he signs the executive orders. And by the way, he's such a warmonger. Look at all of these countries that are making peace. And then, of course, with the tariffs. Oh, it's going to be the end of the world. Hyperinflation, says the people who gave us transient hyperinflation that never went away.
Right.
Um, Apparently, everybody's signing deals. Everybody.
Yeah.
So
Did you ever think you'd see Azerbaijan and Albania or Armenia, excuse me, in the same room?
That's right. He's like, I'm surprised he didn't give them both super atomic niggies, but he was like building a road. It was like, we're
Right.
going to build a road through your countries, and now you're going to be friends.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, it's like, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, countries are figuring this out rapidly. Somebody is actually showing what American power really looks like, and believe it or not, he's ending wars. And the thing that happened with Iran was a quintessential moment because everybody
Sure.
said it was going to be the end of the world, and it just turned out to be the end of Iran's nuclear program,
Right.
at least for a while. And it was done with complete efficiency and with speed. And all these people who were going to complain if there was this long roll up to doing it were silenced suddenly. It was over, and the Iranians are like, you know.
Yeah. And there's the immediate hot take of oh, it's the end of the world, and it's World War III, and then 12 hours later everybody's completely silent because they can't actually give the guy credit.
Yeah, they can't do it. But he should get the Nobel Peace Prize because we're going to end up with peace and security if all this works out. I mean, we got a long way to go because Biden and company really screwed things up badly. But what are some of your thoughts here as we kind of wrap up for tonight on the Trump administration, like, and where you see things going? And do you see anything we got to watch out for on the horizon?
Yeah, I think things are going generally in a positive direction. I think you pointed out, especially the first 100 days, he really hit the ground running, right? And so uh, it was such a frenetic pace, and you had Doge came, Doge went, and it's like the first 100 days is old news now. So
Yep.
he the I think the biggest just sort of momentum risk here or perception risk is that okay, progress is slowing down, or he's getting to the stage of this term where he's got to grind out more victories because it's going to take legal action and work its way through the courts, and things are going to by their very nature slow down and not be as splashy in the headlines. So he risks having the perception that he's losing momentum when in fact things are changing on a more permanent basis. And so I think that's something to be concerned about. Obviously the midterms are something to be concerned about. Generally the incumbent loses seats in Congress. However, the Democrats are such a crap show right now that I don't know if they can organize enough to win anything. I don't think they talked about this Supreme Court election in Wisconsin at the beginning of the year as sort of a bellwether. I don't think that there's anything that's going to linger from that.
Mm.
You've got New Jersey and Virginia coming up in November of this year. They're off-year elections, so the governor and attorney general races in both states will be very interesting to watch. I'm a little concerned about Winsome Sears. She hasn't really. She seems to be spinning her wheels a little bit, but she still has time to find her footing because Abigail Spanberger is a real problem if she becomes the governor of Virginia. But I think we have a real opportunity in New Jersey. The offshore wind issue is actually going to play a big role in that election, and
Yep.
the mainstream rank and file voters in the state of New Jersey hate all of that stuff. So that could really swing that election. So that's something to watch. So I think midterm, near medium term, let's look at these off-year elections and then gear up for the midterms going into 2026 and build off of that momentum that Trump has right now.
Well, and I'm thinking the economy and where it's at by a year from now will have a
They
big effect.
keep predicting that it's going to melt down and we're going to have a depression and all that stuff, and it keeps not happening. And so, when it keeps not happening, they just don't report anything that's going on.
Yeah.
So it's up to. I do know polling numbers aren't great for Trump on the economy right now, because they were. I think people had unrealistic expectations that it would turn around immediately, and
Yeah.
it has to an extent, but there's not enough time for the changes really to take effect. So I think what you're going to see is, with the tariffs and that sort of regime, it's by the end of this year, he's going to be right back on track to where Trump is supposed to be on the economy, and that's going to set him and the Republican Party up well for the midterms.
Well, and if you're a business and now you can fully deduct the costs of capital
Yeah,
improvements in 1 year, I
yeah,
mean, I'm going to start
that's
spending
huge.
money
That's
on
huge
stuff.
for growth. Absolutely.
Yep. It just takes a while for that to kind of work its way through the economy and turn into like healthy consumer sentiment and stuff down the road. But I'm a contrarian. I think that next year could actually turn out to be frighteningly good for Republicans in the midterms, because once everybody's on board with the, well, this is how it's always been, but you have the Democrats doing what they're doing, and people are really not pleased with it. Only Republicans can get in their own way, I think, on this one. And I'm concerned about Congress because Congress doesn't always seem to
It's
have its
not
act.
like we've seen this before or anything, Kevin.
That's right. I know. I know. But look, Trump has raised, since he won his election in 2024, I think he's raised somewhere like $1.5 billion.
Wow,
Um,
really? For campaign money?
yes. And
Wow, I
so,
didn't know that. That's pretty nuts.
and he doesn't need it. So he's
Right.
going to push it out
Well,
into
JD
all.
Vance will need it.
JD Vance will need it, but I also think you can push it into a lot of congressional races
Sure. Sure.
where, a lot of people are running around hat in hand, concerned in 2024 that actually the Trump campaign was taking all the cash that was out there and leaving them high and dry. Now it reverses the flow, I think,
Yeah.
potentially. So anyway, well, thanks so much for joining us here tonight. This is great, Jeff. And of course, even though I don't blame you for going off to Florida, we do miss you here.
Yeah. No, I was actually back out there in May for the Oregon Conservative Caucus, and had a blast with that. So I was just quick in and out. I saw as many people as I could, and it was very interesting. I had dinner downtown with a couple of friends, and it was, the city doesn't even realize it has the stink of death on it. So
Yeah, they're doom looping. They're doom looping, and they
yeah,
don't know it. But I do think that when people visit other places and they come back, they're like, "I didn't see any tents when I was out there,"
right,
and name the state.
yeah.
So
No, actually, downtown was a little bit cleaner than the last time I was there, but that's a relative
it's a relative
observation.
term. I
Yeah.
know. Well, thanks again for joining us. And everyone, go check out restoration-news.com. You can follow Jeff there, and you can also check out his book at whoownsthedems.net. And, keep fighting the good fight from Florida, but for the whole country, Jeff. We really appreciate it.
Well, and I love coming on. I'm happy to come on anytime I have the time to do so. And this is always a great time. So thanks, Kevin.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Um, Folks, please share this show with everyone you can. And we will see you on the next episode of The Captive Audience. Should have Don and our new co-host on tomorrow night, who's joining Don on a regular basis on Wednesdays. And I don't know. Every once in a while, I'm putting out a special on Friday when I get a chance to record it. And then next week, I'm going to have on Monday, I should have Jeff Eager, who's the former mayor of Bend, and a really great writer and investigative journalist who has Tina Kotek's number, just knows how to go after this. He's at OregonRoundup.substack.com. And then on Tuesday, Dave Huguenot, who was in the Trump War Room in 2020, is going to come and just talk to us about what he's seeing across campaigns across the country. And we'll keep you informed and keep you hearing news and opinion that you can't hear anywhere else but on the Captive Audience. Thanks, everyone, and have a great night.